Dean of Admission at TCU. My name is Heath Einstein. I'm Dean of Admission at TCU. We are so excited to have you with us here for another edition of Facebook Live for the Office of Admission. We are almost a year into this thing, if you can believe it or not. What started as a session we thought would generate a little bit of interest has actually generated a lot of interest. And so we are excited to have you here with us. Please enter the chat, put your comments in, ask lots of questions. We want to know where you're coming to us from as well. So if you want to just say hello and put that into the comments, we love to hear from all of you. The topic tonight's topic is on communicating with the Office of Admission. And we thought this would be a really good time to have this topic. Because first of all, the time of year where we are. Right now, it is the 2nd of February, 2022. And this is an interesting break point between what 11th graders are doing, what 12th graders are doing, and then what current college students who may be interested in transferring are doing as well. It's sort of all heating up, right? Oh, now I see where you all are from. This is great. Amy, hello. Hello, Emma from Illinois. Hello, Ariana, also from Illinois. A lot of Illinois people here. Mary from San Antonio. Awesome. Rachel from Austin. Good to see you. Emily from Odessa, Texas. Sarah from Edina. Catherine from Orange County. That's where I'm from, Catherine. Unbelievable. This is so exciting. It's great to have all of you with us. By the way, if you are not from North Texas, you may not be aware that we are right at the very beginning stages of a massive storm that has already caused classes to be canceled for tomorrow and Friday. All university activity has ceased. So this event right here is basically the last thing that's going on at TCU until the weekend. But anyway, back to what I was saying before. This is an important time of year, February, because if you are a senior in high school, you have probably already submitted your applications. We just passed our last deadline yesterday, February 1st. That was for our early decision round 2 and our regular decision. If you are a junior in high school, you may just now be embarking on the college search. So this is an exciting time for you. In fact, just on Monday, 2 days ago, we had our first Monday at TCU program of the spring semester. Monday at TCU is a big campus-wide visit program. And indeed, it was filled with a combination of 11th graders and 12th graders, and some eager younger students as well. And if you are currently attending a 2 or 4 year college, it might be around the time that you're starting to think about whether or not you might transfer to another institution. So that is why we are here tonight to talk about communicating with your admission office, in this case, our admission office, the Office of Admission at TCU. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, before we do that, I just want to say, if you were with us last month, you might remember that I said a couple of dad jokes, and we had a lot of fun with that. Our staff had put me on the spot and asked me to say some dad jokes, so I did. And lo and behold, I got sent from Lauren Kelly. I hope you can see that. Lauren Kelly sent me a book of dad jokes. So Lauren, if you are with us tonight, thank you very much. It's much appreciated. And in your honor, I'm going to say a dad joke. I have not picked one in advance, so I'm just going to randomly select a page. Let's see what this says. Okay. Do cow mothers like coffee? Do cow mothers like coffee? The answer is yes, but they prefer decaf coffee. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, one more. Let's see. Let's pick this one. What is the best part about Switzerland? The flag is a big plus. Okay, if you know anything about flags of European countries, you'd know that makes a lot of sense. Although I don't think the Swiss people think that is necessarily the best part about Switzerland. Okay, now on to the program. Um, there are lots of ways that you can communicate with an Office of Admission, and there are lots of reasons why you would want to communicate with the Office of Admission. Um, so I want to start by just sort of peeling back with a little bit of data. In our office, there are about 20 counselors, 20 first-year admission counselors, or 20 admission counselors in total. And by the way, if you're wondering who yours is, if you click on the link there, you copy down that link, and you could just go to our website and do a search for this. There is a Meet Your Counselor page where you just put in the name of your school, and that will immediately pop up who the person on our staff is, would be your assigned counselor, because we do that geographically. Based on where you live, you're going to have an assigned admission counselor. So for example, I work with students from the states of Alaska and Hawaii. So if you are joining us tonight from Anchorage, Alaska, which in this case would be today from Anchorage, Alaska, and you're curious who your admission counselor is, that would be me. And so you could reach out to me. You'll find my contact information online, and you can send me an email. You can phone me if you want. I don't think students usually do. You all might not even know how to use a telephone, but it's a device where you press buttons, numbers, and that will link you to somebody else on the other line who picks it up and can answer your call. So we can talk to you by phone. We're happy to set up a time to speak via Zoom or any way that you would like to, because we are here for you. So we have a number of counselors. So depending on where you are in the country, you'll have somebody who's assigned to you. And I should say where you are in the world, because our counselors recruit in really all over the place. In fact, this year we already have applications from 50 different countries, and 50 different states and 86 different countries. It wouldn't have made sense if I said 50 countries and 86 states, but you know that. 50 different states, 86 countries. So we have students from all over the world. That's part of what makes TCU so exciting. And indeed, we have counselors who are divided up, and we recruit regionally. That person is going to be really important to you, because the person who is your assigned counselor not only is on the receiving end of your emails and phone calls and Zoom conversations, but they are the same people who are out on the road recruiting in your territory. They are the people you see at your high schools. They're the people you see at the college fair. And when you come to visit us on campus, you could even find time to meet with that person who is on our campus. If it's a campus-based staff member, we actually have 5 regionally based staff members. They are in Chicago, Atlanta, Northern California, Southern California, and Western Massachusetts. So they actually live permanently in those places. But we're here to meet you at all points along your journey. They are also the individuals who will be one of the people, not the only people, but one of the people who is going to review your application for admission. And so that person, after getting to know you over time, in a sense, becomes your advocate within the Office of Admission inside of our admission process. So it's good to make contact with us so that we get to know you a little bit better. If you recall from a session that we did some months ago, and we talked about the elements of the application, one of the things that I said then is that our process is about not just admitting students into a classroom, but enrolling people into our community. And to the extent that you are willing to share who you are, we are very much willing and interested in getting to know you in all of your many facets. And so communicating with us becomes important in that effort. Now you might ask, boy, I remember you saying somewhere along the way that y'all get a lot of applications. Indeed, that is true. We have received already this year, as of this afternoon when I ran the report, we had like 19,300 applications or something along those lines. And again, we just passed the deadline yesterday, but we're still processing applications as they're coming through. My best guess is by the time all is said and done, we'll have somewhere around 20,000 applications for first year admission. Gosh, that sounds like a lot. How could you go through all of those? Well, the good news is I don't personally have to read every single application, although I do read a lot of them, and many more, even that I don't read front to back, come across my desk. But that's another reason why we divide up with our staff members. So those counselors will read on average about 700 completed applications, and they will have about 5,000 inquiries. So what that means is there are 5,000 students per counselor who join what we call the enrollment funnel at the inquiry stage. Some of those students will turn into applicants and even eventually horned frogs. Some of those students, they just want to get to know us a little bit. They come to campus for a visit. They might send in an application, they might not. So that's a lot of people that each individual counselor is responsible for, are responsible for. But that's okay, because we are trained to do just that. It's also worth noting that several of those counselors in our office work on our transfer team. And for our transfer counselors, they have on average about 1,300 inquiries and about 300 completed applications. Now, you might say to yourself, well, hey, good for them. They have fewer applications. That must take much less time. Actually, not so. It ends up sort of evening out, because the transfer population by nature is quite a bit different from our first year population. And whereas a high school senior of a traditional high school age typically has a fairly regimented journey through the college admission process, if you have 5 transfer students, you have 5 completely different stories, experiences, varying stages of life, and so it actually does kind of even out. So I think that's important to note. All of those counselors read applications. All of the folks on our staff read applications, which is an interesting distinction between TCU and some other admission offices. Sometimes with larger public schools, you might have a recruitment staff and a application review staff, and they might be separate individuals. So you might have somebody whose sole responsibility is to go out and recruit, and a different person is reading the application and processing it. For us, and what you'd find at many selective institutions, is one person. That is the same person who is getting to know you out on the road, is that person who's going to be reading those applications. Each of you, when you submit an application, your application is going to be reviewed by at least 3 different people, sometimes more. But I mentioned that one person, the sort of the common thread, is going to be your assigned counselor will be one of those 3 people. Who the other people are could vary. It could be me, it could be somebody else. But we have a consistent and rubriced process so that there is a sense of evenness to how the applications are reviewed. And you can imagine it takes quite a bit of time to get through all of those applications. At any rate, there's another concept that I think is important for you to understand as it pertains to communicating with counselors, and that is the concept known as demonstrated interest. This has been getting a lot of publicity, especially in recent years, when it comes to the college admission process. So it sort of begs the question, what does demonstrated interest mean, and why is it important? Well, that's going to vary from college to college, like so much in this process. And I recognize and sort of have to apologize up front for the fact that every college having a different set of policies makes it necessarily confusing for you, and that confusion leads to anxiety. So I apologize for that. I know that that's the case. But I want to speak, at least from the perspective of TCU, what that means for us. The idea of demonstrated interest is that you are showing colleges that you have a sincere desire to be there, under the line of thinking that if we have 2 applicants who are otherwise identical, right? Their grades are the same, the quality of their writing is the same, the rigor of their curriculum is the same, the depth of commitment to their activities is the same. But student A has visited our campus, they spent time in a department that was of interest to them, They met with us when we visited their high school. They went to the college fair. They did everything that could possibly have been asked of them. They read through every email that we sent and they clicked every form that we had. And student B did none of those things. And their only point of contact with our office is the application itself. Student B is what in our industry we call a stealth applicant. Okay. Now, if you're a college and you have one offer of admission to make and you have those two students, which student do you think is more likely to enroll at your school? It's the student who has demonstrated interest in your institution. Now, 30 or 40 years ago, nobody paid attention to that stuff. Nobody on the admission side really cared about the demonstration of interest. Over time, that has been a tool that some colleges use to help manage their enrollment. You can make more offers to students who genuinely want to be there, which means you don't have to make as many offers needlessly to students you're not really sure if they intend to enroll. And it's a way that colleges can sort of keep their admission rate down, and again, manage their enrollment. We have what I think is a fairly sane approach to the demonstration of interest. And that is, I think demonstrated interest is very important, but not because it's going to help us manage our class. Rather, it's going to help you, the student, decide whether this indeed is a place that you want to be. And so when we are online, sort of paying attention to the ways in which you connect with us, we do it as a means to provide you with even more information that you would find relevant. So if I can see that you're spending time on our financial aid webpage, that sends a message to me that you are interested in learning about financial aid. And so the reasonable thing for me to do is to push out more information on financial aid. So we don't take the approach that in order to get into TCU, you must necessarily have a very high demonstration of interest, because if you have been a great student in the classroom and you have been a leader outside the classroom and you're a high impact person, um, then there's a there's a good chance that you're going to be competitive for admission. And then the onus is on us to convince you that TCU is where you want to be. Now, I should tell you that not every college takes that approach. And so while I would love to believe that everyone who's viewing this Facebook Live believes that TCU is absolutely the place to be, I also recognize that you're looking at other colleges, and other colleges may even be higher on your list. You're going to want to check with those schools to see what their approach to demonstrated interest is. But that's why we're talking about communicating with the offices. You can email us. Some schools will track every email you ever send to them. Some schools will ignore it completely. If you're a school, and I'm not going to name any school by name, but let's just say you're a school that's highly sought after and is extremely selective, and you admit less than 5% of the students who apply, demonstrated interest isn't really all that important, because no matter what that interest level might appear to be, the chances are if an offer of admission is extended, it's very likely going to be accepted. So that's why some schools do it a little bit differently. Okay, I've already spoken for a long time, and you have lots of questions. So I'm going to try to go through these as quickly as I can. So let's start. And some of these were collected ahead of time using social media. So I appreciate those who were able to supply us with questions in advance. Whereas others of you are commenting right now and asking questions. And again, we're going to try to get through as many of these as we can. I'm going to start by addressing questions pertaining to communicating, since that's what tonight's topic is. But if there are other questions in there I will try to get to as many as we can. Okay, so one is Allie Nicholas has asked, should we email again if we never received a response? And the answer is yes, and mea culpa. We apologize for not responding to your email. Whether it is the Office of Admission or Office of Financial Aid, I know that the Financial Aid Office is getting inundated right now with lots of messages. Know that we really do want to get in touch with everybody. We try to respond as quickly as possible. But the combination of being knee deep in file review at this time. We just finished out our early rounds of reviewing applications. We're now have moved into the early decision 2 and the regular decision rounds. Means it can take a little bit of time. So please be patient. But yes, if it's been several days and you haven't heard back from us, please do reach out directly to your counselor. If you've done that already, you can also always contact our general office email address. That's frogmail, FROGMAIL @tcu.edu. If you are a transfer student, that would be transferfrog@tcu.edu. And if you are an international student, it's frogworld@tcu.edu. Another great way to connect with us is through the portal. That would be for students who have already submitted an application for admission. Sometimes we get phone calls or emails that say, I sent in my application a week ago. Can you check to make sure that my teacher sent in his letter of recommendation? Of course, we are very happy to do that for you. But you actually can do that for yourself by going onto the MyTCU portal. The credentials, the initial login credentials were sent to you, and then you have the ability to create your own login information, and you can monitor that information. There's a checklist of required credentials in the portal, and you can look right there. Once you are an admitted student, by the way, all of the post-admission activities will also take place in the portal. So, for example, registering for an admitted student event would be inside the portal. That's not something you do on our website because it is specific to admitted students. So that's going to become an important landing place for you. So yes, definitely remain committed to contacting us. Okay. Let's see. Going through the questions. How can we update? This is Kendall is asking. How can we update our class rank if we received them after the deadline of the application? Kendall, that's a great question. First of all, I want to say while we do track class rank, that is really for statistical purposes only. We don't make admission decisions based on class rank. And the reason for that is because most high schools now don't provide a class rank. Some do, but about 2/3, maybe even more than 2/3 now, of incoming TCU students arrive to us having never been ranked in high school. And so to consider it for such a small percentage of students, while not considering it for the vast majority of students, we decided a few years ago to just eliminate that from consideration in the review process. However, again, for statistical purposes, and we do have to report that out in some spaces, you can just email your counselor or email that Frogmail account, and we can update that for you manually. So thank you very much. Okay. Halen asks, when will we hear back from admissions if we applied in November? So if you applied in November, and I would presume that means after the November 1st deadline, so you weren't applying early decision or early action because those decisions have already been sent out. If you applied in November, but for one of our February 1st deadlines, either early decision 2 or regular decision, you will hear back at some point prior to April 1st. We put that in our publications prior to April 1st. The reality is that historically speaking, we've actually been able to get those regular decision notifications out in mid-March. But we always give ourselves until the end of March, or more specifically April 1st, just in case something goes haywire, we have a problem with technology, or we get far more applications than we anticipate, or we have snowpocalypse, where last year we lost about a week's worth of time to read files because of power outages. Short of something like that happening, I think it's fair to say you can expect a decision sometime in the middle of March if you submitted your application for one of our February deadlines. Okay, so thank you, Halen, for that question. Okay. Samuel asks, do counselors review all applications, or is a software program used to screen the large volume of applications for key words, phrases, or information? Samuel, I love this question. It's a fantastic question. And I think in a time when you are seeing a lot of AI used to do screenings for job applicants, that it's perfectly reasonable to assume that a college admission office would do the same thing. I cannot speak for other admission offices. At TCU, we read everything. There is no artificial system that's used to um, move students into or out of one uh, set of decisions or another. Everything is read cover to cover. You might be curious how long it takes us to read applications, like an individual application. So, Samuel, if you were to submit an application for admission, depending on who is doing the reading, because some of us are slower than others, it could take somewhere between 7 to 15 minutes for an application to be read. Now, remember, again, there are going to be multiple people who read that application. So it'll be more than 7 to 15 minutes in total, but a single person might spend that time. And while it's hard to fathom that you can give a solid read in that period of time, and you might say to yourself, oh my gosh, I spent literally months putting this thing together. How could they get through it so quickly? In fact, we are trained to do just that. And for those of us who've been doing it for now decades, we can actually review them very quickly because we know what it is that we're looking for. They're very specific parts of the application, and our eyes are sort of trained to hit one page in certain places and then the next page. So, but to answer your question, nothing is done via a software program. We do have a software system that helps us route files. We read electronically. So like when I started in admissions about 100 years ago, everything was done on paper. And we would literally have to pull out files, read papers, write our notes, and so forth. In fact, I was just commenting, I was having a conversation with someone in our office the other day who had similarly started quite some time ago. And we were talking about how it wouldn't be uncommon to open up a file and see a letter of recommendation or a transcript that had been misfiled because like a paperclip had put two transcripts together, and a student may have found that their transcript was missing, even though they claimed that they had sent it in, and in reality they had sent it in and it had just been misfiled. That doesn't happen anymore because it's all done on the computer. So it makes things a lot easier and a lot faster. So anyway, okay. Let's move to the next question. Nicole asks, I should say it's under Nicole's account, but Alex Rodriguez is asking, oh, from Encinitas, very nice, from California. Alex applied EA, early action, for this fall, but was deferred. I submitted fall grades. What else can I do? Okay, so this is a great question. We have many students who applied early action for the fall. Some of them were admitted, some of them were denied, and a number of them were deferred. And I think sometimes we don't think that that is a possible outcome. And it's a rather unsatisfying outcome as well, because you think, oh my gosh, I was planning to get a decision, and now you're just putting me off and telling me I have to wait several more months. The first thing to know is when we defer students who have applied early action, we are saying to you, we still believe in you, and we believe that there is a chance for you to be an admitted student to TCU. Doesn't guarantee that you're going to be admitted, but it's not like how it occurs at some colleges where we're sort of gently denying admission. No, what we want to know is more information. We want to know more information about you, the applicant, in the form of those fall grades, your what we call the 7th semester grades, so your first semester of senior year. And we want to know what the rest of the applicant pool looks like. And so how you appear in the context of that regular decision pool will determine ultimately whether you're admitted or denied admission to TCU. By the way, we have a policy that we do not defer students from early action only to then waitlist them from that regular decision pool, because we feel that that would be cruel and unusual punishment. If you have started with us at the very beginning of the applicant cycle, there's no reason why you have to wait till the tail end. we feel like in order to honor you as an applicant, that you deserve a final decision once we come out with those decisions here in about a month and a half. Now, early action students also have the option on that defer acceptance form to change to early decision round 2. For some of those students who applied early action, they had a chance to visit campus after November 1 and say, you know what, TCU really is my top choice. I think this is a great place. I can see myself here. So I'm going to switch to early decision round 2. There's another set of students who were deferred early action who had applied early decision somewhere else and said and not get admitted. And now they're saying, you know, TCU was my number 2 school, but my number 1 school now no longer is in the picture. So now my number 2 school has become my number 1 school, and I'm going to therefore apply early decision round 2. So those are options. At any rate, if you were deferred early action, you had that choice on your application as well. What we want from you really is just your fall grades. Now, if there is something else that you believe is relevant for us to know, let's say that between the time you submitted that early action application and the time that we had a chance to review it and come to you with that deferred decision, let's say you are a basketball player and you won most valuable player at the winter break tournament. That is something that you are more than welcome to share with us. So this goes back to the what we're talking about tonight, communication. You can absolutely share that with us on the defer acceptance form. You can send us an email. You can call us. You can text us. However you want to communicate to us. That is absolutely something that we would want to know. So any sort of co-curricular achievement that you've had in addition to what you accomplished in the classroom in first semester, anything that is new and relevant since the time you submitted your application would be something that we're interested in seeing. So, so Nicole, thank you very much for asking that question. Let's see. Nika asks, so this is sort of along the same lines that we were just talking about. If I was deferred but switched to ED2, will that actually help with admission? And the answer to that, Nika, is I don't know. And the reason why I don't know is because we have never had early decision round 2 before. This is the first year that we are doing it. And I will tell you candidly that we have been surprised and happily surprised at the number of students who have switched to early decision round 2, signifying that TCU is their top choice. We kind of thought it would be like 5 or 10 kids, and it's a lot more than that. So that's good. Now, I don't say that, I'm not trying to scare you, Nika. That's not the point at all. The point is that that we do have a number of students who are interested in doing that. And yet, it's still going to be a much smaller pool of students than that regular decision pool of students. And so I think it does help students stand out in the sense that you're being reviewed in the context of a smaller applicant pool. So since we sort of start this next round of reviews with those early decision round 2 students, I do think that it can be a little bit easier to set yourself apart. The bottom line, however, is that we are looking for students who are academically qualified and who are going to be impact individuals in our community. And so simply by virtue of saying, I want to be at TCU and I'm willing to commit by applying early decision round 2, that is not on itself by itself going to earn admission to TCU. Okay, Holden asks, hi, I'm a 12th grade applicant. Is there any chance to speak to someone from political science who's a political science major? Holden, absolutely. We would love to connect you with a political science student. There are actually a number of ways to do that. And again, this is a form of communicating with us. And going back to what I was saying before, communication is not about, or not only about saying, hey, TCU, I want you to notice me, but it's equally important that you use communication as a way to learn about our institution and any other institution that you're interested in so that you can gain some clarity in this process as to whether this is actually where you want to be. So reaching out to and communicating with a current TCU student is a wonderful way to do that. So you can contact our office, and we posted earlier the ways that you can do that. You can call us, you can email us. Those are the quickest ways. You could also reach out directly to the political science department if you would like, and you can find their contact information on the TCU webpage. and they would be very willing to do that. We would, if you reach out to us, we're essentially going to be back channeling it. We're going to connect with the department and try to identify a student. We might also have a student who is a current TCU ambassador. Those are the students who work in our office, giving tours and so forth. And we might find a political science major for you to connect you with as well. But the bottom line is, I think that's a really smart thing to do, because you want to have a sense of what it is exactly you're walking into. And there's only so much you can find out just by reading reading the website, or listening to someone like me drone on for an hour. So yes, definitely connect with students. Okay. Claudia asks, or says, Zachary Habib here in Dallas. If I sent a letter of continued interest to my counselor, should I also follow up by phone? Don't want to overdo it. Claudia, love that line of thinking. And there definitely isn't a need to overdo it. If you have already followed up to express interest in TCU, you have done your job. Every time a student contacts us, we do track that, just as a way to sort of see what the that interest level is. But if you call us once and follow up with an email or something like that, there really is no additional utility to making phone calls and emails on top of that. So if you were to call 30 times instead of 2 times, that's not really going to make an appreciable difference. And frankly, I think you probably could find better ways to spend your time than just calling or emailing. Now, that is not to suggest that if you've got questions that weren't answered the first time you contacted us, that you shouldn't then contact us again. On the contrary, you ask as many questions as you need until you feel confident that you are well versed with TCU and that you can make a really good decision once you get that offer of admission, see what the financial aid package is, and so forth. So that's a great question. Thank you very, very much. Okay, let's see. Okay, Tatum Newcomer asks, is there a formal interview when applying? Great question. You have noticed, Tatum, that I have said nothing about interviewing here this evening. And it would probably strike you as odd if we offered interviews and I didn't say anything about it, because what a great way to communicate with an institution by interviewing. But in fact, Tatum, this year we eliminated interviews as part of our process. And we did that for a couple of different reasons, which I'll get into. First of all, we never really advertised in a big way that we offered interviews. You didn't see much on our website about it. I'm not even sure if we had anything about interviews on our website. Maybe we did. But it certainly wasn't front and center. And over the past summer, as we were talking about ways that we can sort of better level the playing field and create better pipelines of access for all of our students, we thought that a formal college interview could provide a barrier to some students for a variety of reasons. But what we've discovered as we went back and looked at the data is that the students who requested interviews typically were students who came from very well-resourced schools. And so students who already sort of had an advantage in the system going through by being at those schools anyway, and getting a great education, now we're finding this sort of advantage in the admission process. And we weren't real comfortable with that idea. The other thing that we discovered about the students who were requesting interviews is that very often those students were already very interested in TCU. And in fact, at a high percentage, those students were already applying early decision. Well, if the interview is a proxy for interest level, we already had that interest level figured out in other ways. So we felt like that wasn't necessarily a good use of the student's time. And especially since the process is pretty nerve-wracking for a student anyway. And therefore, it wasn't really the best use of our time as well. And there are lots of ways that we felt like we could engage meaningfully with students that didn't take the form of this formal interview process. So we decided to eliminate that. What we were really clear about in eliminating the interview is we did not want to eliminate contact with students. We very much still wanted to connect with you. And so whenever we get questions from students saying, hey, I'd love to interview, can we schedule a time? The response never was, sorry, we don't interview, end of email sent. Rather, it was, we have eliminated the formal interview, but we very much want to connect with you if you have questions or there's something you want to know more about. So let me know what those are, and we'd be happy to do that. So anyway, that was a long-winded answer to a very short question, but I think it's important that we don't do that anymore. And I think it hasn't been a problem. Okay, let's see. Um, Ansley asks, we're trying to schedule a campus visit. I would rather come on a Friday, but if we need to come on Saturday, will I miss out on important information? Are buildings open on the campus tour? So that's a very good question. There is a slight programmatic difference by visiting Saturday versus Sunday, and that is the 30-minute information session led by an admission counselor that would precede the tour if you came on a Monday through Friday. However, all of the information that's provided in that information session can be found on our website, and we have virtual information sessions that we offer as well. So you can definitely pick that up along the way. So if you need to come on a Saturday, you can absolutely come on a Saturday. The walking tour of campus is the same. The tour route is the same. The buildings that the student tour guides, our ambassadors, take you into are the same. You won't see as many students maybe going from class to class with backpacks on. Maybe they're going from Market Square in the blue over to Schollmeyer Arena to watch the basketball team play. So there's a different kind of activity going on campus, but very much activity going on campus. So coming on a Saturday is no problem whatsoever. By the way, you can go on our website to schedule a visit. We have lots of visit opportunities available on campus. The only thing that would be asked of you, the only thing different now during the pandemic, is we do have a mask requirement inside buildings on campus. So you'll see that when you register, you'll be asked to acknowledge that and requested to wear a mask on campus inside of buildings. But when you're outside of buildings, you can be maskless, and that's worked very well. So we've basically opened up back to our more or less to pre-pandemic stages in terms of what we're doing in the Office of Admission with our visit program. Okay. Grace asks, if I applied regular decision yesterday, is it possible to email and switch to ED2? Grace, what a timely question, because we just today within our staff, had a conversation to say, when are we going to stop allowing students to do that? And so the answer is yes, you can email us, but you really need to do that in the next couple of days because within the next week, we are going to shut off that possibility because we are in the process of now already reviewing early decision 2 applications. And the reason why we need to shut that off is because if you apply early decision 2, it's not just going from regular decision to ED2 and everything is the same. There are some additional required documents. One, and probably the most important, is the ED agreement form. Every student who applies early decision, because you're committing to enroll if admitted, has to have that form signed it has to be signed by you, the applicant. It needs to be signed by a parent or a guardian, and it needs to be signed by a school counselor. Those 3 signatures can take a little bit of time to gather. Now, it's done electronically now, as opposed to in the 19th century when you had to use a quill pen signed and then carrier pigeon it back. But still, we need those signatures, and we can't get the process started until we have that. The other piece that we need from some students is the financial aid information. So students who apply early decision and have indicated on the application that they intend to apply for financial aid are required to submit those financial aid forms before we will review the application for admission. And the reason why we do that is because since you have committed to coming to TCU if offered admission, we need you to go through the process of applying so that you see what your expected family contribution is going to be. It's not going to spit out your exact financial aid package. That will come after the offer of admission, but it will tell you what we as an institution and what the federal government, because they provide funding as well, believe that you ought to be paying. you might go through that process and see that your expected family contribution is much higher than you thought it would be, and you want to back out and not apply early decision, which is perfectly reasonable. You want to wait, apply regular decision, see what the financial aid offer is, and then make an informed decision comparing with all of the other colleges to see by May 1st, that national candidate reply date, where you're going to end up going. So the answer, Grace, is yes, you can change, but you got to change quickly. By the way, I mentioned at the outset that we are at the very beginning stages of a pretty severe storm, and that the university has already ceased activity for the next 2 days. So you likely will not hear back from us if you try to call or email between now and Monday. So I just want to set everybody's expectations. I know we're right around a deadline time, and you need answers answered. But just so that you are aware, the university is shut down, and so it's going to be a little bit longer than normal. Okay, we love guacamole asks, and don't we all love guacamole? Is a student's social media taking into consideration during the application process? So this is a really interesting question, particularly as social media becomes more ingrained in our culture, and most students, not every student, but most students have social media accounts of one platform or another. I would say yes and no. And what I mean by that is we actually state in our application, we have a statement that students have to acknowledge, saying anything we learn about you, including what we find out through social media, can be taken into consideration. So yes, it could happen. However, I will tell you, as a matter of course, we do not check students' social media accounts because we do not have the time to do that. So if we have reason to believe we ought to be doing that, then maybe we'll check it. Occasionally, we might spot check something, but I would say for 99.8% of the students, we will never know what's on their social media account unless they bring this to our attention. Now, we do see this from time to time where a student says, I have a blog that has 100,000 followers, check it out. Or I'm a social influencer on Instagram. You might want to see what I post there. So if students raise their hand to say, I have a social media presence that I think would enhance my profile as an applicant, by all means, we will take that into consideration. But if you're concerned, is what I'm posting going to adversely impact me? The answer is usually no. But I would always say you probably don't want to post anything on social media that you wouldn't want your grandmother to see. I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb. Okay. So Dylan asks, due to my cancer treatment this year, I took a reduced class load. Will this negatively affect my admission decision? First of all, Dylan, I hope that you are able to, that you're healthy, that your cancer's in remission, and we wish you all the best with your health. That's the most important thing. To answer your question is, every applicant is read contextually. And so if there has been a health issue that has required a student to have a reduced course load, we're very much going to take that into consideration when we're making an admission decision. So I would posit to you, Dylan, that it would not negatively impact your admission decision. And again, best wishes on your health moving forward. Okay. David asks, sorry if we missed this, but when is the appropriate time to reach out to my admission counselor if I'm currently a junior? David, there is never a wrong time to reach out to your admission counselor. You could, if you haven't done so already, you can reach out just to say hi. Hi, my name's David. I'm from, I don't know where you're from, but I'm from such and such a place. You're my assigned admission counselor, and I just want to let you know I'm super excited about TCU, and I'm going to be on the lookout for when you're visiting my high school in the fall. Also, I'd love to schedule a campus visit. How can I do that? Or something along those lines. And our counselor will get back to you. Perfectly appropriate to do it now. Perfectly appropriate to wait and do it as you get closer to the time when you're visiting campus. It is entirely up to you. Okay, Mary Littlejohn asks, did ED applicants get deferred too? And the answer, Mary, is no. We do not do that. Our early decision students, because they have been so enthusiastic in raising their hand and saying TCU is absolutely where we want to be, we feel duty bound to give them a final decision right from the outset. And statistically speaking and historically, the early decision pool isn't quite as strong as the early action pool. And so if you are not able to stand out within that smaller pool, then you're not going to be able to stand out in early action or regular decision. And so for that reason, we just made a very clear policy from day one that early decision students are going to get an up or down vote. And we just felt like that was the most humane thing to do, because if you're not going to get in, let's allow you the emotional space to move on to your next set of colleges. Okay, so Martha asks, hi, this is Peter Meyerson. So hi, Peter. As a transfer student, what is the best way to show TCU is your first choice without ED option? Very good question, Peter. And so I think now's a good time to pause and just sort of talk briefly about that transfer process, which is much more straightforward in actuality, though the cases of the students may vary, may have more variance. The process for us admitting the students is more straightforward than for first year admission. And that is, if you have completed at least 12 hours in what we call a long semester, either a fall or spring semester at an accredited 2 or 4 year institution, as long as you meet the minimum GPA requirement, which for most majors is 2.7, but it's higher for a couple of the majors, and you can go on our website and see that. You are, and everything is checks out in terms of your disciplinary and academic standing at your previous institution, then you're pretty much going to be admitted. There may be some exceptions, but you're certainly going to be extremely competitive. And so for that reason, we don't feel the need to have an ED option, and we know empirically that transfer students apply to far fewer schools than do high school seniors applying for first year admission. It is now common for high school seniors to apply to 7, 8, or 9 colleges. That may be an average. We see a lot of students who are applying, and this may apply to you, some of you out there, who apply to 15, 17, 18 colleges. I think that's too many, but not for me to say. Transfer students, it's much, much different. Typically, once they know that they want to transfer, they very quickly narrow down that group of schools. And it might be tied to a region of the country. It might be because I know of a specific program I want to do, and only these 2 colleges have it. But very often, transfer students are only applying to 2 or 3 colleges. And so, again, not the same need from an enrollment management standpoint to offer that early decision. And so the best way to show TCU as your first choice as a transfer student, just applying sort of does the trick. And you will find with our transfer students, because there's so much high touch between the transfer applicant and our transfer counselors, that we get to know you really well and have a good sense through those many conversations as to what your interest level in TCU is. So, so no worries there. Okay, we're down to about 5 minutes left, if you can believe it. This time has just flown by. So let's see. Let me try to get through. There are a couple of questions about letters of recommendation. Christina asks, how much do letters of recommendation help if you were deferred and then submit them in addition to fall grades? Christina, the answer is they really don't help all that much, because typically what that additional letter of recommendation is saying is not a whole lot different from what we see and what we need to see in the letters of recommendation that we get with that initial application. And the decision on whether to admit a student who has been deferred largely just rests on performance in the first semester of senior year relative to the performance that we're seeing from our regular decision students in the context of the particular program that you're interested in. That can play a role as well. And we did a session, I think our December session, it was either November or December, but I'm pretty sure December was all about choosing your major. And we talked through how there are certain majors that have a different level of interest from applicants. And so the requirements may be a little bit different. So that plays into it as well. So don't worry about gathering an additional letter of recommendation. That really is not going to carry the day. Along the same lines as letters of recommendation, Izzy asks, should I submit letters of recommendation even though they aren't required as a transfer student? And the answer is, if you believe a letter would enhance your profile, because unlike the previous question, because we don't have a letter of recommendation on file for you, absolutely you are welcome to send it in. If you feel like it's important to help us understand who you are, then we want to know that. But again, going back to a comment I made before, with transfer students, the decision almost exclusively rests with what your GPA is. So again, a little bit different transfer versus first year students. Let's see. So Mateo asks, as an international student, we don't have the chance to visit campus or go to college fairs. What are other ways we can get in touch a lot more with TCU? Greetings from Ecuador. Well, gracias, Mateo, for your question. We very much want to speak to you. We have several members of our team who are dedicated specifically to international students, led by Karen Scott, who is our Director of International Admission. She gets to know all of our international students, so you can absolutely reach out to her. You can email us at frogworld@tcu.edu. And if you would like, you can even request an opportunity to schedule an appointment with Karen or Nicole Sinclair or other members of our international team who can set up that time to talk. I should also note that while we haven't been able to travel internationally in the last 2 years, our hope, our goal is that as soon as possible, those travel restrictions internationally are lifted. And it's not so much actually the restrictions on our end. It is, we hope that the schools outside the United States feel comfortable enough, and that the public health conditions improve enough that they are able to invite us to campus, because we are very much willing to travel and travel extensively internationally. We do. So we are willing to meet you when possible. And if it's not in your hometown in Ecuador, then you can connect virtually with us as well. But definitely reach out to our our international admission team. Okay. Let's see. Let's make this. I can't believe it's 6:58 here in DFW. So we're gonna have to make this the last question. I'm so sorry to do that. But let's see. There were a couple of questions in here about scholarships. Okay, so I am going to just go with. Let's see. Emma asks, "Hi, I'm currently in 11th grade. Hi, Emma. Good to see you. I love TCU. Great to hear. We love that, and would love to attend. I've seen your merit scholarships, but I'm wondering if TCU offers any more." So when a student applies for admission to TCU, whether it is as a first-year student or a transfer student, they are automatically reviewed for scholarship when they're offered, when we are going to admit them. Okay, that happens automatically. There's no additional forms that need to be complete in order for you to be considered for academic scholarship. It's going to be based on your grades, based on your curriculum. If a student submits test scores, we will take that into account. If we believe that will help the student, if we don't believe the test scores will help the student, we'll ignore them. All of those academic components will be the determinants of whether a student has earned a scholarship. You'll be notified about the scholarship at the time of admission. There are other scholarships that are offered at the university based on talent. So think about athletic scholarships, music scholarships, dance scholarships, etc. There are other scholarships as well that we have for returning students. So even if you're not initially granted a scholarship, we have something, for example, called the Academic Achievement Award, which is money set aside for students specifically for students who did not get a scholarship upon entering TCU, but had a highly successful first year. Academically speaking, many of those students will be awarded the Academic Achievement Award. And there are all sorts of other awards that are given through our financial aid office. You might also consider external sources of scholarships. So I always like to recommend fastweb.com as a great source for scholarships. Emma, one last thing for you, since you're a junior, you might set up a profile on Raise Me, RAISE Me. Raise Me is a micro scholarship site. TCU is a partner, and you will earn money for things that you have accomplished throughout high school. So, an A in a particular class or holding a leadership position. And you can go on the website and see exactly what we will give you money for, so long as you add TCU by December 1st of your senior year. Then, if you're admitted, we guarantee to meet at least that level of scholarship. Okay. So if we do not give you an academic scholarship, but you've earned $6,000 through that micro scholarship site, we will give you $6,000. Now, if you've gotten $6,000 through that, but we then come on top of that with $12,000, we don't match those up together. You would just get the bigger of the two. Okay. Okay, that's a great way to end it. There were a lot more questions. I wish that we had time to answer them all. We will try to go through and respond to your comments on Facebook if we can. But I want to thank you all for being with us again this time. We always have a lot of fun with it. Next month, we will do this again in March, and we will be celebrating our anniversary. It will be the first anniversary of doing these Facebook Lives. So that will be a lot of fun. We'll have a little bit of a celebration. Okay. With that, we wish you a pleasant evening. If you are in a part of the country where you're dealing with inclement weather, we wish you warmth and safety. Otherwise, have a great evening and go Frogs.